My name is Mike Rosendahl with PCE Investment Bankers, and today I'll explain 3 terms you need to know before negotiating a purchase agreement. When negotiating the sale of your business, the purchase agreement will outline the terms and conditions of the sale. While the price and net working capital target are the most critical sections, there are 3 other terms you will want to focus on: representations and warranties, the cap, and the basket. Reps and warranties are statements in the purchase agreement that provide facts and security against loss if the statements made are not true. It is critical that you disclose everything. If you don't, you are leaving yourself vulnerable to claims from the buyer, which will reduce your proceeds. There will always be exceptions to the representations and warranties, and these are listed on the schedules. This acts as your get-out-of-jail-free card. There are 2 types of representations and warranties: fundamental and non-fundamental. Fundamental representations and warranties include organization and standing, power and authority to undertake the transaction, title to the securities of the company, taxes owed, title to the assets. If you can't make these statements, then you should not consider selling your company. Non-fundamental representations and warranties are everything else, such as statements about the material contracts, customers, vendors, and employees. So for example, let's say you represent that your top customers don't plan to stop doing business with you. If one of your top customers does plan to stop doing business with you and you don't disclose this, you're leaving yourself unprotected and the buyer can make a claim against you. But if you had made a disclosure, then the buyer can't make a claim. The amount of the claim will be impacted by the cap in the basket. The cap is the most a seller would have to repay for non-fundamental rep and warranty claims. This is usually 7 to 10% of the purchase price. Fundamental indemnification claims are normally excluded from the cap and typically limited to the purchase price, except for fraud, which is normally uncapped. A basket is the starting point where the seller must repay claims. The buyer must incur these losses before being entitled to any claims from the seller. Baskets are usually around 1% of the purchase price. There are 2 types of baskets: tipping and non-tipping. Tipping baskets entitle the buyer to full recovery of all claims from the first dollar once the incurred losses have reached the basket threshold. This type of basket is more favorable to the buyer. A non-tipping basket is a true deductible and is an alternative to the tipping basket. It entitles the buyer to recover only the losses that exceed the deductible. This type of basket is more favorable to the seller. Let's go back to the example where the seller did not disclose they knew a customer would stop doing business with them and make a few assumptions. The cap is $10 million, the basket is a $1 million tipping basket, and the claim is for $2 million. Since it is a tipping basket, you would owe $2 million since it reverts to the first dollar claimed once the $1 million threshold has been exceeded. Also, $2 million of the $10 million cap on claims will have been used. If we switch the basket to a non-tipping basket or deductible, the only difference would be the amount owed by you, which would decrease to $1 million since the first $1 million is free. Let's look at an example of a violation of a fundamental rep as well. It is determined that taxes are owed from the period when you own the company. You will need to pay these in full since you own the company at that time, and these are fundamental reps. If you owe $500,000 in taxes, that is the amount you will pay. Again, fundamental rep and warranty claims aren't impacted by the cap or basket. The purchase agreement has many terms, and it's important for you to understand them all in order to protect the proceeds from the sale of your company. In fact, the cap and basket are so important that you might want to negotiate these terms in the LOI. But ultimately, what's most important is not the sale price, but the amount of proceeds you get to keep. Thanks for joining me today, and if you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you'll be notified whenever new content is posted.